At number one, close call at number one for me. I think the gap between 1 and 2 based off week 1 performance is about razor thin. I'm going with the Buckeyes because what I saw from Ohio State feels extremely sustainable. A defense that could completely shut you down, a defense that was absolutely buttoned up in coverage throughout the game, a pass rush that did have an effect on the opposing quarterback. And what I liked most about Ohio State is that I don't feel like I saw anywhere near an A-plus performance from them offensively. That, from Ohio State's standard, is probably a C-plus, B-minus performance as far as what they're capable of, their ceiling, their potential. I mean, Jeremiah Smith, for crying out loud, had 2 drops in the game. So I'm really optimistic about what I saw from Ohio State because they got to win against a quality team, and making it more impressive, it was nowhere near what we might get from them down the road offensively. They're number one. Number 2, by the way, I had Ohio State number 8 in the preseason. I was in see it to believe it mode with Ohio State. Every one of those Buckeye fans that was telling me how crazy I am, you guys were right, 100%. I just needed to see it. Now that I have, they are rightfully atop the rankings at number 1. At number 2, it's LSU. I had them at number 7 in the preseason, so I liked what the Bayou Bengals had, but they now vault all the way up to 2 with a road win at Clemson. Really, really good defensively. Excellent. Constantly flustering Cade Klubnik, relentless pressure. Thought the coverage on the outside was very good. I thought they had an effect on how Cade Klubnik saw the field and how quickly his clock was moving. So I thought LSU had arguably the performance of the weekend. I just maybe am a little less sold on Clemson than I am on the Texas Longhorns. That's why Ohio State sits at 1, LSU sits at 2. The other positive about LSU's performance, I think Garrett Nussmeier was about a B in that game. A, B, C, D, he was about a B. He missed some throws off the mark early, had some inaccurate throws that were caught, but weren't a lot of opportunities for run after catch. I know what Garrett Nussmeier can do. And if we get an A-plus performance from Garrett Nussmeier in the future, coupled with the improved defensive approach, this LSU team might have as high a ceiling as anyone in the sport. At number 3, it's Penn State. I had them at number 2 in the preseason. Not a lot to learn from what we saw there in week 1. Would like to see them maybe run the ball a little bit better with Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton, but they kind of utilized the pass one to get that going. Perfectly fine with them. They're at 3. I have Georgia at 4. I had them 6 in the preseason. Workman-like performance. Not going to learn a lot this week either, but we will learn quite a bit about what they can do when they go on the road to Tennessee in week number 3, but they're sitting at 4. Just want to see them start a little faster this week, perhaps. At number 5, it's Oregon. Had them 9 in the preseason. Really liked what I saw from Oregon. Granted, I know who it was against. I get it. But that FCS team that they played was one of the most effective rushing units in the entire country last year. Yes, they lost their quarterback. Yes, they lost some key pieces. But to hold them in check the way Oregon held them in check was impressive. And I like the depth that I saw from the weapons on the outside. That was a concern. I no longer allow that to be a concern. At 6, it's Miami. Big jump up from number 10 for me in the preseason. I think this team could legitimately win a national championship. I look at their offensive line. I look at their defensive line. The veteran presence of Carson Beck has me feeling extremely bullish on what Miami accomplished this past weekend. Now, are there still some things that I'd like to see cleaned up? Sure. Occasionally inconsistent running the football. Did have one bust in coverage that almost got him with Eli Raritan getting into the second level and turning into a big play with the game on the line. So I do have some questions about Miami continuing to finish games. We've seen that be an issue in the past. Will it be an issue in the future? I hope not. They're at 6, but they're not at 5, 4, or 3 because there were a couple things there in the fourth quarter that were a bit troubling for me. At number 7, I have Texas. I had them 4 in the preseason. Do have some worries about Arch. Do have some worries about some of their protection issues. I am not nearly as high on their wide receivers as I was going into the game against Ohio State. I think that group has a lot of room to improve. I think they can. There's talent on that roster. But I look at Texas's defense. That's a stout unit that's not going anywhere. That's for sure. At number 8, here's where it gets very interesting. And people will probably panic, freak out, fill in the blank, whatever the reaction may be. At number 8, I have the Florida State Seminoles. They were not ranked by me in the preseason. But tell me a team Seriously, tell me a team that played quality competition. Describe Alabama however you want. I think Alabama is considered quality competition. Tell me a team that looked more dominant at times than Florida State. The variety offensively, what we saw from Thomas Castellanos at quarterback, he was incredible in that game. The improved wide receiver core, the improved physicality along the offensive line. I thought defensively, Tony White, whatever they're paying him, pay him more, because that was a phenomenal game plan. He always seemed to call the perfect play at the perfect time to exploit what Alabama was trying to do offensively. I'm not sure there was a team that impressed me more in week 1 than what I saw from Florida State. So they move all the way from unranked into the top 10 for me. I have them at number 8. Is it overreaction? I don't care. I watched it. So I think they're appropriately listed right now. At number 9, the Utah Utes. They were 19 for me last week. This offense is going to be a huge issue. And say what you want about UCLA, they didn't have any answers for Devin Dampier. They had no answers for some of the creativity that we saw in the playbook, and the runaround nature, the off-schedule nature was a beast. The defense continues to be the Utah defense that we've always expected, but this offense now, what's been holding Utah back the last couple of years, it's the offense. They showed that they are ready to go this year. I have them at number 9, the highest ranked Big 12 team right now. At number 10, it's Notre Dame. I had them at 3 in the preseason. I've dropped them down to number 10 right now. I think they can absolutely get back. I love the way they finished the game against Miami. I just want to see Jeremiah Love utilized a little more. I also want to see Jaden Greathouse get involved. Not involved whatsoever in the game plan last week. Malachi Fields had some moments, but not nearly enough in my eyes. And I don't love some of the things I saw from them defensively. This is a lockdown cover group. I don't want to see as much zone coverage as I saw last week. I want to see more man. I want to see more defend. I want to see more up in the face of the wide receivers, challenging those wide receivers. And they make those moves, they can absolutely begin their climb back up to the top of the sport. But I do think there's a few things to clean up defensively from what I saw last week. At number 11, I have South Carolina. They were unranked for me in the preseason because I wasn't sure what I was going to get defensively, and I had questions about the offensive line. I now think the defense is very solid. I'm intrigued by the growth I saw at the wide receiver spot. I love Lenora Sellers. I've always loved Lenora Sellers. That's not going away. I remain hesitant to put this team in the top 10 because of what I saw from their offensive line and pass protection. I am concerned about that group against top-tier competition. This offensive line, will they be able to keep Lenora Sellers' jersey clean and create a bit of a balanced attack? If they can't, that'd be problematic. But it was a good, solid win. Very good, solid win, and a convincing win at times. But I want that offensive line to be more consistent moving forward because that could be the position group that hurts them this season. At number 12, it's the Clemson Tigers. I had them number 1 in the preseason. Here's my problem with Clemson. I didn't think they offered up much of anything in the run game. They got to take some pressure off the quarterback. I don't care how good and how relentless the pass rush is. I don't care how good the wide receivers are. I don't care how good Cade Klubnik is. They have to be able to hand the ball off to neutralize the aggressiveness of the opposing defense. I didn't think they do a very good job of that in week number 1. I also became immediately concerned about what we saw occasionally from the offensive line. I also did not like the way Cade Klubnik played in this game. I thought he made some mistakes. I thought he pressed. I thought he allowed the pass rush to get to him. He allowed the blitz packages to get to him. That can't happen. Not when you're in year 3 as a starting quarterback. He's too good. He's too talented. He's played too much football to allow the pass rush and hits to have that kind of an effect on his decision-making and on his accuracy. So 12 is where I have Clemson. Big fall down from where they were in the preseason. At number 13, I have Tennessee. I had them at 21 in the preseason. I've moved them all the way up. And I know people will say, well, Syracuse is not high-level competition. It was how they looked. I have no longer significant questions about Joey Aguilar and how comfortable he's going to be in the offense. I thought he made a lot of great throws in this game against Syracuse. Some down the field, low percentage, requiring big-time accuracy, hitting guys in stride. I felt like he was actually better on the downfield in one game that I've seen from Tennessee in the last 2 years. So and is there stuff to clean up? Absolutely. but I was pretty encouraged with what I saw from the offensive line. I knew the defense would be good, and they constantly harassed Steve Angeli, but I'm really excited about what I saw from Tennessee's offense. I think that's a replicable recipe and something they can continue to build on moving forward. At number 14, I have Oklahoma. I had them at 15 in the preseason. I kind of got what I expected. Can't take a lot from it, but guess what? We'll find out all we need to know about Oklahoma this week when they take on my number 15 team, the Michigan Wolverines. I had them 14 in the preseason. I loved what I saw from Bryce Underwood to start the season. I thought he threw the ball with great decisiveness. I thought he made a couple great plays. There was a play or two where he threw it before the receiver was out of his break. That to me shows a lot of command and trust. I thought there was also a couple moments in which he displayed next level poise and accuracy. For example, things are breaking down. He sees the tight end shooting out on a wheel. He just kind of floats it over the top and allows the guy to run under it. Man, that's next level stuff. Defensively, I know they're good. I love their edges. I love a lot of what I saw from Michigan on the defensive side. And I love a lot of what I saw from what might be a slightly more well-rounded receiving core. But it was really all about Bryce Underwood. I have them at 15 because it's hard to take a ton from it. I can't move them in front of teams that I think played at a slightly higher level. But Michigan, I think, is deserving of that 15 ranking, and they'll get all they want this weekend in that matchup against the Sooners. At 16, it's Iowa State. I had them unranked in the preseason. I'm now moving them all the way up. They've looked really good in 2 contests. It was gritty, it was savvy, it was veteran-led leadership that propelled them to victory against Kansas State a couple weeks ago. Time-consuming drives, big play on 4th down, they secure the win. But it was last week in an outrageously efficient performance from Rocco Beck that has now moved them into the top 16. I really like where this offense is headed. I think they've done an adequate job of replacing some talent at wide receiver. It's a balanced offensive attack. Will be interesting to see how they fare this week against Iowa, though. I have them at 16 based on what they've done these first couple weeks. At 17, it's USC. Went back and kind of evaluating things a little more, dropped them down from my preseason ranking of 11. Still think they're a playoff contender, but right now there's still a few things I'd like to see from them before I move them in front of teams that I know just a little bit more about. At number 18, it's Arizona State. Part of the reason why I've dropped them down from number 12 is I saw a pretty remarkable run of penalties last week, undisciplined moments last week, wiping out big plays last week. I mean, that can't happen. And that was at home. Now, this week, they'll go to Davis Wade to take on Mississippi State. I think there's things to iron out for sure. I also would like to see an emergence from someone beyond Jordan Tyson at wide receiver. So they dropped from 12 to 18, not because they look bad in the process, but I do think there's quite a bit to clean up from the Sun Devils. At number 19, it's Illinois. Now, if you look at the AP poll, this is pretty far down. If you look at where I had Illinois in the preseason, it's actually up. I thought it was a good first week from them. They were at 22 in my preseason. I've now moved them up 3 spots. So I think Illinois appropriately ranked in the top 20 with a nice test coming up this weekend on the road at Duke. At number 20, it's Florida. I have them at number 16 in the preseason. Looked at the offensive line, thought there were some okay moments, but some of the protection stuff I want to see cleaned up. Dropped them down just a hair. We'll find out a little more about Florida this week when they play against a USF team that gave Boise all they wanted and more last week and dominating the Broncos there in the season opener. Now Florida gets them coming off an additional 2 days rest where Florida's going to have to play up to a different level than what they did last week. At 21, it's Auburn. I had Auburn at 20 last week. The only thing that concerned me about Auburn's performance was the amount of yards they gave up through the air. That's the only concern. Now, they were resilient. Great job flipping momentum with special teams score. Great job with the quarterback run game. Great job with the established run game as the game went along. However, what they gave up through the air is something that did have me feeling a little bit uneasy. At 22, I have the Ole Miss Rebels. A lot to like about what we saw from them this past weekend, but not a lot to take away from it. I thought there were a couple issues along the offensive line that has me concerned. Maybe not this week. We'll see what happens against Kentucky. But at some point, Ole Miss's offensive line is going to have to take a step. They were a bit of a liability at times last year, and it looked like in week 1, they might be a bit of a liability at times again this year. However, I liked what I saw from the defense, and I really liked the weaponry that Austin Simmons has at his disposal. Austin Simmons, on the other hand, he had just one bad throw. Thought he made one really big mistake in the game. He had 2 interceptions, but only one I qualified as his fault. He made some really nice throws in there as well. So if you can just eliminate the negative play, he'll be just fine. I have them at 22. At 23, it's A&M falling all the way down from 13. They were not good against the run last week. That's why they dropped as far as they did. If they're getting gashed up front, that's a problem, a huge problem. And I also didn't see the growth that I might hope to see there in the preseason on the offensive side as well. At 24, I have TCU. They were unranked coming into the season. They now slide into the top 25 with the complete demolition of the UNC Tar Heels. And then at 25, I have the Texas Tech Red Raiders. They were 24 in the preseason, but they get bumped down in favor of TCU. Teams that dropped out of my top 25. First one is Alabama. Based on 1 week's performance. Now, can Alabama still absolutely get back up? For sure. But on talent profile standpoint, is Alabama a top 25 team? 100%. But I got to see it to believe it. Same reason why I had Ohio State at 8 going into the same season. Same reason why I had some other teams ranked lower than others, because I got to see it to believe it. And with Alabama, what I saw in week 1, to me, did not warrant being in the top 25. Want to see them be more physical at the point of attack offensively. Want to see them hold up better. When a linebacker's one-on-one with the running back, I don't want to see the running back win that battle. I want to see their linebackers play violent football. I want to see finish, maximum effort at wide receiver, in the back end defensively. I think Alabama, actually, coming out of week 1, what I was most impressed with was how Ty Simpson played. I thought he played really well. However, other pieces on the roster not playing up to the level of their capability, which is why they drop out of the top 25 for now. Jeremy Bernard's a star. Parker Brailsford, the center's a star. Good moments and some good performances buried in that disappointing result. But now we need more. That's what I need to see from Alabama as they move forward with a good bounce back opportunity this weekend against Louisiana Monroe. They go and do all the things they did this past, all the things they didn't do this past week, and they do it in this game against the G5 opponent. Could they get back in the top 25? Perhaps. Absolutely they could, but it's going to be about effort. It's going to be about execution more so than it was a week ago. I also dropped out Indiana, not really for any reason. I just felt like I needed to make room for some teams that had slightly better performances. I dropped Baylor out after giving up 300-plus yards on the ground, but a big opportunity for Baylor to take on SMU this weekend. Another team that's a fringe top 25 team for me, but according to the AP poll, they're well positioned. They're in the middle of the top 15. You also take out Boise State. Boise State was not in my preseason top 25. They couldn't be closer. They couldn't be further from it right now based on what we saw week 1.